Welcome to Live Like an Acrobat. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, two-time world champion in acrobatic gymnastics, USA Gymnastics Hall of Famer, and circus artist. I was formerly on the USA Gymnastics Athlete Task Force, and I'm currently in bankruptcy court seeking to hold USA Gymnastics legally accountable for the abuses that I suffered at the hands of my USA Gymnastics coach for the first time. In this multi-series episode of Live Like an Acrobat, I wanted to bring you powerful stories of Black acrobatic gymnasts because their experiences of racism, bias, and inequality within the sport matter. Racism within acro is being told by your coach that you will never become a world champion because you are Black. I was told this by my former acrobatic gymnastics coach, David Rickbaum, also my convicted abuser. And as you see, we proved him wrong. No matter how he tried to minimize my potential within the sport of acrobatic gymnastics, he was unable to succeed. And so I was inspired by remembering all of the painful experiences that I had while competing as a young Black acrobat within the sport of acrobatic gymnastics. There were many, many, many beautiful, amazing moments as well. But this series, this is dedicated to Black Lives Matter. Because even though we as Black acrobats, Black coaches, Black judges, Black gym owners have had incredibly amazing experiences, we cannot deny the fact that our competitive experiences were drastically different than our non-Black competitors. And that's because, unfortunately, racism knows no bounds and exists within all spheres of our lives, including the sports that we love. So with this series, I wanted to provide a variety of Black voices within the sport of USA Gymnastics so that you can, as a listener, gain insight into conversations that we've never had before out loud, conversations that people and these acrobats are afraid to have. It's difficult to speak these truths out loud, to share these experiences out loud, to be vulnerable when we're already vulnerable. But I believe that this helps us to take our power back. I feel like we are already powerful, but there's another way to reinforce our power. And I believe that's by not having to excuse our experiences away, make light of them, make them into jokes, but say them within the sad space that they occurred, however heartbreaking and however sad they may be, and that this will lead to fundamental change within the sport of acrobatic gymnastics and within the governing body of USA Gymnastics for all Black athletes. And I know that this will create a ripple effect that will ultimately bring more diversity and affect all athletes of color. My first guest on this episode of Live Like an Acrobat is Brandon Cephas. Brandon competed in acrobatic gymnastics for 5 years for Extreme Acro, where he currently coaches. Next year will be his 15th year as an acrobatic gymnastics member. Brandon has recently written a poetry book entitled Time for Change. Please welcome Brandon Cephas to the show. Hi, Brandon. Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time out to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me. How are you? It's been a while.
Yes, it has. I'm really well. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to speak with you after all this time. And I really wanted to include your experience as a black male acrobat and coach, as we know that the black male experience is different than our black female experiences. You've recently finished a poetry book about the current Black Lives Matter movement. Can you share more about this with me?
So I'm the type to, when it comes to situations like this, protesting to me is fine, but I feel like with my talents and stuff, I can reach more through my poetry. So that's what I've been doing. I've been watching the current events. I've been watching protesting. I've been watching, and helping, people who were not black or colors to say, just educate them and share my experiences and let them know why I'm upset. And then, from there, I just felt like this book will help those to just have a different perspective. It's easy, to walk, one way and not really get a chance to feel that experience, like actually feel what it's like to get pulled over for nothing but an air freshener or just to be walking. So I felt like this book meant a lot to me, and I wanted to share it.
That's beautiful. What is the name of your poetry book?
I have not come with a title yet, actually. When I do, it's going to be up on Amazon. I'm going to have a link out. I'm sure I'll be in contact with you, so I will let you know as soon as possible. Like, I literally just got done writing it yesterday.
Wonderful. Well, please do let me know. So when we spoke before the interview, we discussed just how few black coaches in acrobatic gymnastics there are and how disappointing that is. Can you share your thoughts about this and what it's like for you as a black coach in acrobatic gymnastics?
It was funny because, honestly, I thought it was just mainly 3 black coaches in America, which, I don't go to all nationals, but I go to a lot of them. And normally, most of the time, it's just me and Cameron. So it was like an eye-opener to know that they're out there. But then I questioned how come they're not at nationals. Where are, all the other coaches of color? And to me, I feel, as a big statement to see, if you have black athletes able to see, oh yeah, we also have black coaches, as well as something to look forward to in case they decide to continue the sport and they age out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. How was it competing as a black acrobat for you, and how was it for your family?
My first few years, it was fine. It was weird because I started so late. I started when I was 24, so my perspective would have been a little bit different to someone just growing up in this sport. I can recall, especially with what the skin tone on the Leos were always different. And, I had a lot of hair that I had to get cut because it didn't fit the criteria of what, acrobats should have during that time. So I was a little, bothered by that. It always had to be, I understand presentable, but to me, your hair can be in different ways besides just being a crew cut haircut. So, that's one of the things that actually meant a lot growing up. I'm not growing up competing in the sport.
And did you express this to your family? Was it concerning for them? Was it difficult for them to hear this from you about your experience as a Black acrobat? Did you speak to your teammates about this? And did you feel like you had allies within the acrobatic gymnastics community that supported you as a Black acrobat when you voiced those, I wouldn't say opinions, but feelings, concrete feelings about how you were treated or made to conform and some of your Blackness to be able to compete?
No, because when I talked to my family about it, it was a whole new sport to them. They never heard of sports acrobatics. But in terms of the actual sport, it was more so the norm. So I didn't necessarily have allies at the time doing that because it was like, these are the rules, and if you want to do the sport, you have to follow these rules. So I just, at the time, did what I was told because I love the sport more than try to have a cultural change at the time. Like, looking back, I probably would have done things differently, but at the time I was so into doing the sport.
What do you think USA Gymnastics needs to do to provide more support for Black acrobats? And also, what do you think needs to change about USA Gymnastics overall?
In terms of Black acrobats, the cost for acro, which I personally had to deal with, is if you're not in the upper class type pay grade, trying to do acro is really hard because it's constant, like these extra fees, and the Leo prices are just insane. So a lot of the parents that I've seen, coming through Extreme, had to leave because the pricing was just way too much. And the USAG as a whole, to me, I feel like they don't honestly care about the athletes like it used to be. When I was first competing, there was, events. You go to nationals, and it was like a big event. There was opening party. You got a chance to meet other athletes around the country. They had a welcome ceremony. There were pictures being taken with your partners. At the end, it was a closing party. But it seemed like as the years progressed and we actually got under the USAG flag, it was go to nationals, maybe have a party, or then became going to nationals and going home. Like iHeart Acro had to, from my perspective, had to keep what was how Acro used to be alive. But USAG, I just feel like they just want you to go do Acro, and then that's it. And then they was cutting like level 6s from competing, and I feel like that wasn't fair because what if you worked so hard at the level 5 and you got a chance to go to level 6 and then being told that you can't go to nationals? So there's a lot of stuff like that I didn't agree with.
Yes, that is incredibly disappointing and disconcerting. Is there anything that you want to leave us with, Brandon? Your final thoughts on USA Gymnastics, on being a competitive Black acrobat? Anything that you want to say to other Black acrobats who are currently competing, who are maybe thinking about transitioning to becoming a coach, and how important that would be for them to do so, or even others thinking maybe they want to start their own gym as a Black gym owner to produce a acrobatic gymnastics team? Do you have any comments or inspirations for them?
Definitely. I would say go for it. I mean, it would mean a lot to up-and-coming future Black acrobats, and athletes is because we're so few in numbers, and it'll be nice to see, more coaches showing up to nationals and to international competitions. It'd be nice to have more diversity in the acro world, where there's Black-owned acrobatic communities, and it'll set a powerful statement. So I try not to get emotional, but with all that's going on, it's a lot.
Yes, it is. Thank you for processing with us today, Brandon. Thank you for sharing your powerful thoughts, your opinions. They are so important. They are so inspiring, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate you as a Black acrobat, as a Black coach, as just an acrobat, as just a coach, and as a human being. And thank you for putting out your beautiful poetry. I look forward to sharing that with the Live Like an Acrobat audience, and I look forward to seeing all the ways that you will continue to advocate for the Black community within acrobatic gymnastics, and also just advocating for acrobatic gymnastics as a sport as a whole within USA Gymnastics. So please take care, please stay safe, and please stay healthy, Brandon.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Bye-bye. My next guests hold a special nostalgia in my heart, as they are sisters who competed in acrobatic gymnastics like my sister Nicole and I did. Allow me to introduce Cameron Jones, who currently coaches at Extreme Acro in Rockville, Maryland. She competed in acro for about 10 years. In that time, she was named to national team 4 times and competed at the World Championships in France in 2014 and China in 2016. Since her retirement in 2017, she has been an acrobatic gymnastics coach, a judge, and the athlete representative on the Region 7 committee. Her sister, Jordan Jones, was a regular artistic gymnast for 10 years and then transitioned into acrobatic gymnastics. In her 3 years as an acrobatic gymnast, she was named to the national team twice and attended the World Championships as part of a junior elite trio in 2012. After her gymnastics career, she was a cheerleader for 4 years at the University of Florida. Since she graduated, Jordan Jones has been an early childhood teacher, specifically in kindergarten and first grade. Please welcome Cameron Jones and Jordan Jones to the show. Hi, Cameron, and hi, Jordan. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for your time.
Hi, for having us. It's an honor.
I want to commend you both for sharing your experiences with me about what it was like competing in acrobatic gymnastics as Black athletes, and now as a Black coach and judge as well for you, Cameron. Cameron, you were recently quoted by iHeart Acro about your experience as a Black acrobatic gymnastics competitor, and I wanted to share what you said with our listeners. End quote. Part of privilege in our sport
is knowing that when you get your new competition leotard, the mesh color will probably match your skin tone. This is such a powerful quote, Cameron. We as Black athletes know this sad reality all too well. The insecurity of being on the competitive floor, wearing something that does not reflect you, or just knowing that your Leo will need special adjustments after it arrives. There are so many nuances and questions that our experiences as Black athletes include that athletes that are not of color do not have to ever consider. Cameron, when we discussed your participation on the show, you mentioned that even though you have experienced racism within acrobatic gymnastics, that you feel lucky because your experiences have not been as bad as others. I know that that can be for a multitude of reasons, but I wanted to begin with opening up the conversation if you and also your sister Jordan feel that because you are lighter-skinned Black women, because you are biracial like me, your experience is easier. We within the Black community know that colorism exists and that if you are browner like me or darker than me, that most likely your experience will be harder and the effects of racism will be felt deeper than if you are lighter. I've heard lighter-toned athletes say that people literally forget that they are Black, and so this puts them in a position of spectator where they are privy to racist comments. I've also experienced this myself, even though I'm quite brown. Do you feel as though you can speak to this? And even with this bringing a potentially different experience as a Black athlete for you both, how did it feel competing as a Black athlete in acrobatic gymnastics? And how did you see other Black acrobats affected by racism or unfair treatment within the sport?
Well, that's a really good question. And I actually had a conversation with Jordan yesterday regarding what I call my mixed kid guilt. And she had a great explanation and I guess just sort of message of support for mixed people who are feeling guilty about speaking out about these kinds of things. And maybe I'll let her explain her what she told me, because it actually was really great. So, Jordan?
Yeah, of course. So you all can't see, your listeners probably can't see, but Cameron and I are biracial, but we physically present our Blackness very differently. So whereas she has long, thick, straight or semi-wavy hair, my hair is much more African. It's very curly, it's fluffier, it's on the drier side. Her eyes are brown and her skin is much more tan, whereas I have green eyes and my skin is lighter or more olive in tone. So even though Cameron and I are both people of color, we both come from the same parents, we present differently. And that proximity to whiteness makes these spheres a bit easier to navigate. But since we present in different ways, our race is often interpreted by other people in accordance to their own perceptions. So I came up with the metaphor or the analogy of biracial people as being kind of like a latte. So a latte it's a drink with mostly milk, and then it has a shot or two of espresso. Now, there's not a whole lot of espresso. If we're talking about ratios, there's much more milk than espresso. But it's much different than a straight glass of milk, and it's much different than a straight cup of coffee. But people interpret lattes in different ways, right? So some people, they'll think lattes are tasteless because they're mostly milk and they can't really taste the coffee. Other people will drink a latte, people like our mom, actually, and she will only be able to taste the coffee. So to her, that drink is coffee. And some people will drink lattes and think, it's a perfect balance. So just like that latte metaphor, our race is perceived differently. It's determined by the people around us. So since we are lighter skin, since our tone is fairer, or we don't look quite as stereotypically Black, we're a little bit more racially ambiguous, that makes it easier for us to navigate these majority white spaces. So like you mentioned, people might feel more comfortable behaving in a way or speaking on things that are actually not appropriate towards us. And that makes it, you know, in one sense, we feel kind of pressured to whitewash ourselves to blend in with the majority, but we also are still feeling the effects of that, you know, those microaggressions or that casual racism or feeling like we are othered.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I wanted her to articulate. And I totally agree. I feel like people don't necessarily see me as that black athlete, but, you know, I am. And while the nude mesh kind of did match my skin, it still kind of got to me. It's like, why is this the norm across the board? And I've asked the question, and they're like, well, you know, like, if they have to sell the leotard after they're done with the leotard, then whoever buys it has to be the same color as them. But it kind of doesn't make sense. Why is that the rationalization? Because why does the darker kid have to wear the wrong color, but then the hypothetical person who might buy that Leo has the right to a leotard that matches their skin?
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Live Like an Acrobat. Please join me for part 2 of my conversation with Cameron Jones and Jordan Jones. Until then, please stay safe and stay healthy.